bitch, a ribbon potato. We invented the cherry tomato and Waze USB drives and the Iron Dome. Israeli salad, Uzi Stenson, Jaffa's orange grow. Microchips is us, iPhone cameras us, taco salads us, Bodagabamo's us, Olive Garden us, White Phosphor us, Sabra Hamas, Hasbara sus.
Hello, and welcome to Bad Hasbara, the world's most moral podcast. How's it going? My name is Matt Lee. I'm going to be one of your most moral co-hosts for this podcast. Up top, shout-outs. Producer Adam Levin. From now on, I'm going to make sure that I do not forget to shout out our amazing producer, Adam. He's the man with the plan. I didn't write anything other than shout out to producer Adam Levin, so now I'm just kind of vamping. He's the man with a plan. This guy, without this guy, this show would be dog shit. So everyone thank Adam. Thank him in the chat. Thank him in the reviews. Thank him on his Instagram. I think it's Hey Adam Levin. So thank him for all that shit. Also, just a reminder, subscribe on all the podcast apps. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, it's because you get it first. You get it first because it's easier to export audio than it is to export video. So if you are someone who watches the show on YouTube, that's sick. Good for you. We all love to look at dudes talking about stuff, but just know that you can always just go and subscribe to it on a podcast app and then just watch the show and never listen to it. Feel free to do that. Last but not least, one of the Bad Hasbara mods on Reddit, on r/Bad Hasbara, he was at, he or she, I'm not sure who it was. They remain anonymous for safety reasons. One of them has been encamped at their university, and them and their fellow student activists were actually all arrested yesterday on a way to make way for the, commencement ceremony of graduation or something. So I just want to give a shout out to the mods there for, putting their money where their mouth is and taking action and stuff. And listen, I know that everyone on that subreddit has no idea that it's a subreddit for this podcast. I don't care. The point is I love everyone on there for engaging in the subject matter and also supplying a lot of great videos for us to talk shit about. So thank y'all at r/Bad Hasbara. Okay, bringing in the most moral co-host. He is here, but not here. This motherfucker is all the way in France, live from France. It's Daniel Mate. What's up? There he is.
Allô, bonjour et bienvenue au podcast le plus moral du monde, Bad Hasbara, avec Mathieu Lieb et son co-host, moi.
So, I just want to say that was absolutely beautiful. I love the French language. But also, as soon as you showed up to, on to the StreamYard, I almost cried because you shaved. What did you do to your hair, dog?
I got a Frenchman to molest my face with his scissors and machines and ointments and sprays and such, and made me look,
if there's one thing the French
made me look like the 8-year-old that I actually am.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you look 10 years younger, and also if you're gonna get your face, shaved, France seems like a good place for it. They're really good with skincare in France. I use their fucking Kiehl's skin cream. That shit is pretty dope. As someone who has very dry, terrible skin, you got to give it up to the French for that.
And I'm in Marseille in Provence, which is, the home of lavender and soaps and the Marseillaise.
Yeah.
But you're sad about the beard. Were you a fan?
Well, no, listen, I think you look good either way, but I will admit, seeing you clean shaven reminded me of this video. And I actually downloaded it, so that I could play it for everyone. This is what it feels like.
Nina? Hi.
This guy shaved his dreads. I'm sorry, but that's the feeling I had. So that guy, he shaved off all of his dreads, and then he shows up in his His baby son does not recognize him.
The
Starts
kid's
crying.
like, oh my God, it's going to take him another 14 months to grow those back.
I know. It's like all of a sudden you got a new daddy. That sucks, you know?
Yeah.
But
Look,
you know what?
give it another, I mean, it won't be as bushy as it was, but give it another few weeks.
I'm already used to it. I think you look great either way, dog.
Thanks.
I think you look great.
It does look a little strange to me, but it feels nice. I wanted to feel the Mediterranean air on my pores.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it looks good. And, fucking, I will never, I'm not going to shave my mustache fucking ever, dog. I'll just let you know that. I'm going to die with this thing on.
Okay. I can't promise I'll cry if you do.
Oh, if I die, you won't cry if I die?
If you die, of course I'll cry, but not that you'll
Okay.
be able to verify it. But I promise you I will. If
I'll
you
know.
shave your mustache off, I'm just saying, you can do it without fear of breaking my heart.
Okay.
Because I can roll with the punches, because it's unconditional. The love between you and me is not about cosmetics. It's not about grooming. It's not about sartorial anything.
It's about
feelings,
anti-Semitism.
dog. It's about
I mean, what?
anti-Semitism. Right. Now, if you started loving yourself as a Jew, if you started developing Jewish self-respect, if you stopped dissing our only God-given homeland
And our only option for safety in the world.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. If you studied up and flew right as a Jew, then the love would be gone, because this, of course, is conditional on that. It's conditional on you and I hating ourselves and our people and
Exactly.
doing everything we can
It's
to bring
us
about a
being-
second Holocaust. And,
Absolutely.
there's only so far, as Tevye said, there is no other hand.
There is no other head. Da, 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 da,
Da,
da.
da, 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 da. Yeah.
That fucking musical rules. All right. Well,
it's so good.
listen, I think it is about time that we introduce our most moral guest for this episode. This is someone who not only have I seen, do stand up, but for me, only on the internet. I've only ever seen them do stand up on the internet, but I've known about them for a while. And then most recently, in the last 8 or so months, a lot of his clips have been blowing up. Because he is not only hilarious, but he is also thought-provoking and correct on issues that most people are not correct about. He is hilarious. He is a wonderful stand-up comedian all the way from Australia, but calling in he's in Istanbul right now, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. Our guest is Aamer Rahman. What's up?
Hello.
What's up, Aamer?
Thanks for having me. Someone say anti-Semitism. I am here. You've rubbed my lamp, and I have appeaed.
I love it. You
I'm
have
home,
3
friends.
wishes, and they all have to be about, hurting the Jews in some way. Yes.
And now we also represent the full spectrum of beard and mustache.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Matt,
We're
you're
everything.
you're the link
That's right.
between me and Daniel.
Yeah, it's I wish I could say it was a style choice, but it's literally a genetics choice. I cannot grow a fucking beard. I wish I could, dog. I would, that's why when I see Daniel without a beard, I'm like, come on, man. It's like knowing a guy can do a flip, and it's just like, why
Just
why would
choosing
you
not
walk?
to use his gifts. Yeah.
Just flip
got the-
everywhere.
We got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Goat.
That's right. That's right. I'm the
That was
holy
bad.
goat.
That was labored. You're the Holy
No,
Goatee.
it worked, dude.
But it's not a goatee. What is your style called, Matt? Like, what is that?
Guy Fawkes?
So you got the soul patch, you got the little bit of dusting down here, and
Yeah,
you
a
got
little
Guy
dusty,
Fawkes.
and then a dirty
Yeah,
mustache.
that's Guy
here.
Fawkes.
Van Dyke, producer Adam's calling it a Van Dyke.
Oh, okay. I like that. Like Dick Van Dyke?
Yeah.
I mean, we were all just doing impressions of him as a fucking chimney sweep earlier before the pod started, so it all
Chim
comes
chimney chim
circle.
chim shrew. Well, that's another kind of dick joke.
Did Dick Van Dyke have a mustache like that?
You know what? I don't think he did, so I don't know why it's called that. I bet it's.
I've
there was
only ever seen him clean shaven.
maybe there was a president. Is there a President Van Dyke? Listen, I'm not interested in American history, all right? Why? Because it's a history of fucking imperialism and slavery, but also because
named
it's
after the
boring.
17th century Flemish painter Anthony Van Dyck.
Oh,
Okay.
Flemish, huh? Where the fuck is that? Where's Fleming at? Anyways,
Belgium, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. We're actually secretly very smart on this podcast. We're a bunch of smart guys. And Aamer, you are someone who I think is incredibly intelligent. And I got to say, I've been fucking digging your stand-up recently. Everything you've been saying is been both hilarious and spot on. And you have been, there's like a handful of guests that the listeners of this podcast request by name, and you, I think, are in the like top 5 of people that
Wow.
people are like, you got to get this guy on. So thank you for coming on the
I
podcast.
am the anti-Semite of choice. This is, I mean, the honor. It's incredible.
Yes, I mean, listen, this podcast is a really big deal. Dozens of listeners around the world, all of whom are currently getting fired from their jobs for listening to this. But so you're an Australian. What has been going on in Australia? Obviously the repression against, people who speak out against Israel all over the Western world seems to be, everyone seems to be kind of marching in lockstep, at least, the governments. But what's Australia doing? How's that been?
Australia is doing what it always does, which is exactly as you said, just taking the lead from the United States and just following behind. Like, 'cause the one thing you can be sure of is that Australia never has any original ideas. If the UK and the US are doing it, Australia's doing it.
And why is that? Because I'm from Canada, and it makes sense. Like, we share a large border with the United States. We get most of our culture from the United States. You guys, I mean, what's the point of being a backward prison colony halfway across the world on the underside, like basically the like butt tattoo of the world? No offense, geographically speaking. I'm just being scientifically precise because it is under the world, right? Like, it is on the bottom, right? Of our Yeah. Objectively, in terms of the universe, north is up, right? So what's the point of being so far flung? What's the point of being so far away from everybody? Having to, you have to fly there 24 hours it takes. If you're not going to make up your own mind about stuff, if you're just going to borrow
this is the cool thing about the West.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the West is it can be anywhere. It can be on the bottom of the earth. It can be in the middle of the Middle East.
It's true.
You can set up that franchise anywhere you want.
Yeah, dude.
It is a franchise.
And the ideas are the same, and the concepts are the same, the behavior is the same.
It's really kind of amazing because for a second there, I was going to be like, man, maybe we should just like go to the moon. But like the moon's probably pretty Western too, Like they got an American flag on there already. We really fucked up the world and the universe with all of our bullshit. But have you so before October 7th, and the subsequent genocide that got ramped up after that point, how much were you talking about like specifically the Israel-Palestine quote unquote conflict? Was it something that you had talked about before on stage? And
I mean, I haven't done stand-up for about 7 years. So I've been I quit basically, and I used to talk about it, and then after October 7, I was just kind of waiting to see what people were going to say. Comedians being, as fearless as, as we all know.
Dude. Leather jacket.
Because they never stop telling us,
dog. Free speech. What happened
Andrew
to free
Dice
speech?
Clays of the human race.
Yeah.
But, not just the ones who tell us how fearless they are, but honestly, I mean, we're, 2 decades into the war on terror. There's a lot of people who've made their names on talking about social justice and racial justice and Islamophobia and whatever. And I was shocked, really, in terms of how little people were willing to say, and how calculated people were being. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, why don't I just say some stuff? What worst case scenario, like it'll just get ignored or, my accounts will be banned. So what? So I booked a bunch of shows in London. And I called up my friend Ruben from Australia who flew out to film it. And
sounds pretty Jewish to me.
He actually converted to Islam, so lost one.
All right, man.
But not from Judaism. He wasn't Jewish. He just has a name that...
I was just singing Lauryn Hill, Lost Ones to me myself in my head. No, we really lost one.
So yeah, I mean, I hadn't done stand-up in years. But
that's crazy.
I just kind of
that
felt
means I've been doing
compelled
stand-up for way too long. I didn't know. I didn't know you stopped doing stand-up. I think I'd known you as a comedian. I think you'd also done my wife's show and Francesca Fiorentini.
I did Francesca's show a couple of years ago, I think. Maybe it was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I did an episode of it.
So
I'm on social media. Like, I'm still around. I'm still talking shit on the internet. So people just kind of assume I'm still there, but I actually haven't done. And I left Australia about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, shit. I'm like way behind on Aamer.
It's okay. I mean, I don't really announce it.
Yeah, sure.
But I just hadn't been doing stand up. So and then
Were you doing comedy
I was
of
trying
any
to book
kind?
these...
Were you writing comedy for other people, or were you just totally out of that?
No. I'm just totally. I tweet every now and then or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was calling these clubs in London, being like, "Hey, can I have like a week of 7 p.m. slots?" And they were like, "Who the fuck are you? Like, what do you mean?" And I was like, "No, I used to do comedy once." So I got like 2 nights at one venue, 3 nights at another venue, and anything I've done that's ever gone viral, my friend Ruben filmed. Mm-hmm. So I called him. I was like, "Dude, I could only do this if you come." And he flew out from Australia. We filmed a bunch of shows, and then I just our whole thing is just to edit it, whatever is usable, and put it out like as soon as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's fucking beautiful because I mean, the shit that you wrote then in just the last few months has been great. I mean, and your story is kind of similar to mine, and I think Daniel's as well, which is that we're a lot of what kind of drove us to start like talking about this, in public settings, like, on the internet and either through like comedic Instagram videos or like serious ones or this podcast or whatever, was the fact that it looked like everybody had decided collectively, at least in comedy or in the world of entertainment, to not talk about it, to just like pretend it didn't exist and to, kind of like, I don't know, that seems kind of tricky. I'm too stupid. That was the big one that pissed me off the most was comedians I know who would talk about literally everything else, but they'd be like, no,
under the sun.
I'm too stupid to understand this. I'm just dumb. I'm just dumb clown man. And
that's what I'm just a little comedian. I don't understand these big ideas.
I'm a little boy and I'm scared. And it's like, okay, but you could just be an adult and say you're scared. Like, I'm actually okay with that. But it was like even the idea of telling people you were scared of the repercussions of saying something in public, even that was scary. To talk about that from people who I think, if you don't, base your identity around like saying the thing that people aren't allowed to say, you're either doing that or you're basing your identity around, being vulnerable when everyone else is all, fucking everything is
being brash and macho and,
It's one or the other. And so whether it was the vulnerable comedians or the like brash and macho comedians, no one was saying shit. And it felt like I was going crazy. And I'm sure that's how it felt for you. And you bring up a lot of points in your stand-up that I think are fucking great. The best one, or one of my favorites, is your chunk on the War on Terror, where you just draw the exact same parallels between the War on Terror and this moment. The way that like we are really just reliving the War on Terror again and pretending as if it was so long ago that we don't even remember the lessons of it.
Right. I mean, the wild thing is there are young people now who don't have any memory of it.
For sure. Sure.
Like, it's literally like something in a history book, if that, for them. Or it's like something that happened in a movie.
Yeah.
So there's those of us who are reliving it and in this like, really kind of surreal kind of way, because it's the same, but in many ways it's worse. Mm-hmm. And there's people who are kind of living it for the first time. Yeah. And like, it was really terrifying to see how quickly the programming kicked in again.
Yeah.
And
are you talking here about the crackdown and the unanimity and the media and the kind of the falling in line? Because obviously in terms of the world events themselves, the distinction is it's more localized. It's happening in one tiny strip of land, and we're all watching it like the war on terror was very diffuse. Oh, we're over there in Afghanistan now. Oh, we're stopping people in airports. Oh, there's
Right.
Guantanamo Bay over here. Oh, there's Bagram, you know. But are you talking then about like the kind of the media climate, the propaganda climate that we're living through?
Yeah, like definitely the unanimity, the uniformity of the automatic position that was taken after October 7.
Yeah.
And the repression, just the crackdown. But at the same time, like it's also been amazing to see people organize. Like
Yeah.
when you look at the student encampments, like we didn't have anything like that during or after the Iraq War. Like
Right.
it was just too close to 9/11. Like people were not like tearing up their universities or, and that's kind of one advantage is that this generation is not traumatized by the crackdown of the early war on terror.
Right.
They're not really, like I joke with my friends all the time. We have that 9/11 voice in our head when we're talking on the phone or when we're posting something online. No matter how much we say that we refuse to submit to it, it's there, right? It's this calculation that's always going on. Whereas, kids who are like 17, 18, 19, they don't have that. They're just like, well, fuck this. We're not going to submit to this.
They just know the invasion of Iraq. They just know the invasion of Iraq as the reason they were conceived.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the night that George Bush delivered his "You're with us, or you're with the terrorist" speech, mom and dad had a little too much to drink after that, and
Yeah.
Drown in their sorrows.
Yeah, it was a different kind of baby boomer, the boom was happening a few thousand miles away in Baghdad. But I think the other thing too, not just the repression and the media in acting in lockstep and all that, and governments acting in lockstep with the Western kind of like chauvinism, but also the kind of instant reversion back to Islamophobic tropes. Like this,
100%.
the instant, like who are we kidding? We all know Muslims sometimes just kill people for no reason. Like stuff that we, I distinctly remember people feeling ashamed of after a few years of that, at least liberals feeling ashamed of after a few years of kind of like saying shit like that publicly, like, all of a sudden, Bill Maher was like quieter about his Islamophobia, and he covered in this kind of like new online atheism type shit, where it's like, no, I hate all religions. I just only talk about Muslims. And like, people like Sam Harris having a more and more niche like foothold in this kind of like his career was not as booming as it once was during the war on terror. Like,
yeah, it's true. Like this era and that era are both very much coded by people saying to me, "Yeah, but have you listened to what Sam Harris has to say about it? He's really smart."
Exactly.
Right.
Like that's a mark of a very decadent and disturbed moment in history when people are asking you whether you've considered the deeply thought through viewpoints of Sam Harris.
Of Sam Harris, who has said almost verbatim, like, context actually doesn't matter. The only context that's important is the fact that Islam is inherently
inferior,
and a like religion of war. And
remind me to tell you the New Testament parable of the good Sam Harris stan.
Oh, I will. I probably won't be able to remind you.
No,
so
it was just a bad pun. It was just a bad pun.
Oh,
the good Sam
okay.
Harris the good Samaritan.
Oh, wow. Wow. Listen, you're jet lagged.
It was a jet lagged pun.
But no, I mean, like for me, all the things that you brought up, I felt the same way. But it was especially among, as you were saying, Daniel, like the people. Smart people, the people who I think are thoughtful people, or at least I once thought were thoughtful, now just like the instant reversion to kind of a general Islamophobic attitude and a general kind of like submission to authority, which is something that they, certain liberals, of course, like to be bootlickers, but like a lot of the people I knew were a little bit. They were more in my mind than just liberals, and I always kind of thought their Zionism was just a not well thought out like baseline that they had. But then their Zionism overtook their common sense, you know?
And definitely when I say programming, this, so, you know, it felt like, you know, maybe in the last 5 or 10 years that kind of, you know, there's also been kind of this general kind of wokeification of mainstream culture, right? Like we've had kind of these movements around representation and, you know, like, you know, the media landscape has changed. There's more brown people on TV and there's all this kind of stuff. But, you know, October 7 happens. And like you said, like that Islamophobic framing of, wait a minute, maybe not all, but some of them are just crazy. You know, like we're just not gonna interrogate this event in any kind of context or whatever. Right. This is, what can you do? Sooner or later, they're gonna act up.
This is what happens when you live next to Muslims. Yeah,
that's right. And you know, and then instead of, you know, that automatic kind of hand wringing of like, yeah, it's bad, but if they just hadn't. You know, I do.
Guess what?
Which is, you know, that liberal Zionist character that you play, like it's so close to home. Every time I watch it, I'm just like, people's heads are going to be exploding on all sides over this because that's really it. It's like, yeah, it's bad, but they kind of like 10% deserve it because they, you know, like it's just because I remember that being the kind of, you know, sometimes spoken or unspoken justification around Iraq and Afghanistan. It was just like, well, you know, what are we to do? You know, I wish we didn't have to bring the hammer down on these people, but
look, but here's what we won't tell you, okay? Of course representation matters. It matters a lot. But you know what else matters? Misrepresentation.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, like, if you're going to get represented, you just have to expect that we're just going to, when the time is convenient, and
when it serves our political purposes.
When it serves our political purposes, we're going to misrepresent
roll
you
it back.
as much as we need to. We're going to roll it back. I have a question for you about your comedy, Aamer, because I saw you perform in Edinburgh like 13 years ago at the Fringe in 2011, and we got to meet backstage. And like Matt, I've been so happy to see you coming back on the scene because I've always loved your comedy. And I guess if I had to describe your style, because I'm always paying attention to different comics, like what's their approach, what's their vibe? I think the word laconic comes to mind, like a kind of slow, observational, dry, and very, very patient style. Like you'll build your bit patiently. You will not rush for a joke, unlike me, who's just like premature ejaculating puns all over the place. And I'm not a comic. I'm just a guy who
loves puns and is a little
who loves
psycho.
puns. Exactly. I'm just a dad joke
machine
factory without being a dad. Exactly. What is it about Zionism and Zionist propaganda and this moment that lends itself so well to your way of doing comedy? Because I've just been noticing there's just something delicious about your ability to, in a long form bit, kind of act like you sort of head fake one way and then you go in the other way. How have you found it matches or doesn't match your approach?
I think the advantage is really in who I'm speaking to. And because I've always, you know, I mean, some people consider it a cop-out, you know, if you kind of do comedy that preaches to the choir. But to me, like, I've just never found it enjoyable to be like, yeah, I'm going to get on stage and I'm going to have them all on my side by the end of this bit or whatever. I'm just like, I'm just going to do what I like. And if there's other people who like that, I'm going to do it. Right. Yeah. So I always know the end point, like I don't have to water it down because I'm just going to make the point I'm going to make. And along the way, sometimes it's fun because I know the audience is on side to maybe like act like I'm not going to deliver. But yeah, I think the what's the word? I mean, there's just some comfort in knowing that people understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking to people who understand this, and you can call it pandering if you want. Like, you know, that's a lot of the anti-woke kind of rhetoric is like, oh, you're just pandering. Well, okay, you're also, like, everyone's fucking pandering, dude. Everyone's pandering to whoever likes the kind of jokes that they tell. I'll go, yeah, guilty, you know?
I mean,
so I think knowing that your audience has a level of understanding of these issues means that you don't need to spell it out in a kind of childish or watered down way. And you can kind of play with it for longer and kind of, you know, be more detailed about it because people, they're going to understand those concepts.
Yeah, and I feel like now more so than ever has there been like more of a mainstream understanding of what Israel like is. Other than just the kind of classic, Israel is where all Jews come from.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of the classic understanding is like, oh, it's the state that we need to protect in order to make up for, anti-Semitism over thousands of years.
I mean,
and now people are like, this whole Palestine thing seems like there's more to it than people have been saying.
Yeah, like I'll be the first to put my hand up that I'm always complaining about like this superficial wokeification of culture, and how we there's all these kind of buzzwords around intersectionality and whatever. But the flip side of that is that ideas like colonialism are more mainstream, right? Like you watch a movie like Black Panther. There's a joke in there where like one of the characters calls a white guy colonizer as a joke, right? Which requires the audience to have some like basic understanding of what that means. You wouldn't have seen that in a movie 15 years ago as like a throwaway joke.
Yeah.
So there is a level to which like people have a basic understanding that's different to what it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Completely. Yeah. And I think that like the interesting thing about this moment with Israel and Palestine and, this quote conflict is that people have been able to also see how much of what they've been told is a lie, and they've been able to apply these concepts that I think they haven't really had a chance to before, outside of some kind of theoretical thing, or reading about the history of colonialism or the history of Western imperialism, or talking about just straight lobbyists and the power of a lobby, and talking about American foreign policy in a way where they don't have to where they don't feel like they are choosing. It's almost like it almost exists outside of politics because of the fact that our Western fucking like political systems are in lockstep as supporters of Israel. It feels like we are seeing something like new and different, like something that, whereas there are a lot of social movements and whatnot, especially in the United States, which, are more Democratic politicians will appropriate. They won't lead, but they'll gladly get those voters. Black Lives Matter being the big one. Like there was a lot of politicians who wanted to, what did Pelosi wore like the
kente cloth that
the kente
taking
cloth
a knee,
and took a knee and stuff like that, and it's like there was this level of appropriation that would happen, but it was like it was partisan in that Democratic politicians could use it. They didn't believe in anything. They didn't believe that like we should defund the police. They've spent the last few years saying, no, we should fund the police.
Let's fund.
But at the very least, they were giving,
lip service,
rhetoric support. Whereas like this is something completely different, where they're not even throwing a bone to people, and you have to sift through 400 plus Congress people to find one who will say some real shit about it. And I think like so people are able to finally kind of apply this like what colonialism is to like a real world situation. And I think it's blowing people's minds a little bit because they can't believe that this isn't something from history. They can't believe that it's a now thing,
And like you said, there's, the Democrats are not able to position themselves as the good guys in any way.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're front and center, the main characters of this genocide.
They are in power.
Yeah, so that that's another thing that I think for especially young people is just kind of ripping the mask off the entire system.
Right.
And now there's kind of no option between the two parties.
Yeah.
In terms of, which one of them wouldn't do this.
Right.
I saw a very uncomfortable interview today between Naomi Klein and Bernie Sanders,
Oh boy.
where, you know, they're both clearly uncomfortable. Because I think Naomi wants to be respectful, honest, but also respectful of someone who, in many ways, is on side, but he's also working for the corporation that's killing all the bunny rabbits in the meadow, and and Bernie's job, right? You can see on his face, he's on the one hand, he's talking about how Israel is destroying Gazan society, and he's talking about how these are war crimes, and he acknowledges they're being made with U.S. weapons. On the other hand, his job right now, until November, is to get people to vote for Biden, his good friend Biden.
Yeah.
And he's in this position, and Naomi is trying to not be too confrontational with him by that. But she's also saying, this time, honestly, Bernie, don't feel comfortable telling anyone that they need to vote for Biden on moral grounds. And then they both try to pivot to, and here's how much worse it would be under Trump, which I guess is you can try to make that case if you want. Certainly Trump is no friend to Palestine, quite the opposite. He's talking about he would kick all the protesters out of the country and all that, right? But it was really uncomfortable, and it gave me this kind of sickening feeling of like what it's going to be like between now and November, listening to people try to make the case for why people should, without being like, we're being like, I'm not telling you you should, but you probably should, but no one has the right to tell you should.
But we're definitely going to blame you afterwards if he
100%.
doesn't win.
One way or another, you're getting blamed. This is the thing that annoys me the most about these fucks. Like, and I'm not someone who is, in general, like an electoral politics focused person. So, like I don't have problems with people who are like saying, well, you probably should vote for Biden on like a personal level if I know them, because I know that it's coming from a place of pragmatism and whatnot. I go, okay, I get it. I get why you would say that, because yes, Trump is bad. But the problem I have is with people who are trying to claim that Biden has to do this in order to win the election. He has to go full-throated support for Israel in order to win the election. They say that meaning like if he were to go against Israel and go against the lobby, then he would lose the election. Of course, that makes no fucking sense, because if he loses the election while still being in full-throated support of Israel, it just means that you're going to find a way to blame, quote, the left either way. Because he's like, it's just a way to blame students at encampments. That's all it is.
That's what electoral politics is, a way to blame students at encampments, basically.
Yes, straight up. And it makes no fucking sense. Like, okay, he loses if he supports, Palestinian human rights because of Israel's, lobbying power. And he loses if we don't shut up about it while he is supporting Israel full-throatedly. It's like, it's total fucking nonsense, and it also puts the impetus on being electable with the voters rather than like with the candidate. It's fucking bullshit.
The interesting thing when I decided to put out these clips, like I was obviously bracing myself for backlash from Zionists.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, like maybe because of my algorithm or whatever, I've got like barely any. Some, but like really not. Like I expected like maybe like some of these things I'll just get mass reported and my account will get shut down.
Right.
But the worst backlash has come from liberals. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I was kind of just stunned. Like it was like, like I had to mute stuff because it was just like, waves and waves of who the fuck is this guy? He's not even in America. Why does he have an opinion about America? Trump's a million times worse. Subreddits and articles being written about me. And I was like, okay, you guys are,
that like Trump would send you like to a camp, right? That Trump would like, and it's just like,
Oh yeah, or even like, yeah, I'll be clapping when you guys get taken to the camps.
That's
like,
exactly right.
Yeah, like
That's
I was like,
exactly
okay, cool.
You did it to yourselves, and it's like, what? This is
You sound like great people for me to align myself with.
right. Exactly. Seems like
Yeah, I
you're
saw one.
not
I saw
actually
one
an
tweet
ally.
that was like, "Look, I'm the world's biggest ally, literally. But if you people vote in Trump, I will be there cheering when he deports you." Like it was basically no self-awareness. The guy really thought he was gonna, appeal to somebody with this.
And you
This
see,
guy from like a think tank, some Center for Neoliberalism or something, like,
something sinister.
Yeah, something horrible. Like wrote an entire article around like there's like a 50-second bit at the end of one of my jokes where I'm just like, a system that gives you these two choices is terrible or whatever, and it's making fun of liberals who just won't acknowledge a genocide and would rather like lecture minorities. And he does it like he writes his whole article, and like the best line in it is like, yeah, people are dying in Palestine, but it's not a genocide. I was like, okay, buddy, do you not like, so you're just gonna be the guy for my joke? Like, is that
Yeah, I know the amount of people who just end up going this, but unironically, and you're just like, that doesn't embarrass you to say? Why does that not embarrass you?
no, not only not embarrassing, like being very smug about it.
Yeah,
I'm just like, okay, cool. This is yikes.
And it just goes to show like the amount of like unearned confidence that liberals have from watching, just way too much Aaron Sorkin. Like they are confident in their worldview being correct. They're confident in the idea that like, sometimes the trade-off of lives of brown people is a calculus that has to be made because that's what it is to be in power. And power is ultimately good if it's, held by the West, because the West likes gay people and veganism. And it's just like you have completely lost the thread on kind of like what it is to be a
human being.
A human being, someone who doesn't put people in categories of just like collateral damage for the greater good of Western society. Like you have to be a psycho to say that out loud, unless you're in an Aaron Sorkin fucking TV show.
I'm imagining the next Aaron Sorkin project, the Liberal Zionist Newsroom. And in the pilot episode, I don't know who Jeff Daniels would be in this case, but some actor of that caliber.
I mean, the White House,
Bradley.
the daily White House press briefings now are like the West Wing on steroids.
Yes.
Oh, they are.
Like
It's incredible.
I have to play some of that because that shit is like so there's this guy Kirby and he's not the ghost that sucks in people from the video games. No, is a man. And like I have a couple of clips from him where he is just his defense of Israel's actions, whether it be in Rafah or anywhere in which war crimes are clearly taking place, is always incredible.
I love it when he gets offended at journalists' questions. And frankly, I take offense at that. I take offense at that question.
Yeah.
And these are people who are West Wing pilled people, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're just fucking. They only appeal to the like liberal fucking. The hill white lanyard monkeys who like will do anything to like enter a fucking conference in which, Henry Kissinger was a speaker, and they're like, well, I like to listen to all sides of it. And so like, here's Kirby defending the atrocities in Rafah in a very interesting way.
We have conducted airstrikes in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, where tragically we caused civilian casualties. We did the same thing. We owned up to it, we investigated it, and we tried to make changes to the way, we tried to learn from it, to make changes so that those set of mistakes wouldn't happen again, including as we pulled out of Afghanistan, where we did take we conducted an airstrike which tragically killed a father and some of his kids. We atoned for it, we learned from it, and we put in place procedures to try to prevent that from happening again. And that's what our
Wow.
Oh, great. So are you going to
part
pull
where he
out of
just goes-
are you going to pull out of Israel Palestine then? Are you going to learn that
Yeah.
lesson?
What have you learned? He talks
Yeah.
about atonement. Like atonement is when you say
we
I'm
atone.
sorry.
No, he kind of does this. Well, hey, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. What are you?
That's exactly right. It was like, hey, listen, sometimes you got to do a few war crimes in order to get like a nice peace niçoise salad going. You know?
We've bombed.
Don't
we've
get me
bombed
wrong. I
refugee
felt
camps.
bad. I felt bad about it.
We feel real bad. Look, we've bombed refugee camps. Okay, we did it. And in the process of bombing refugee camps, there's been times when we've killed some refugees. Okay,
Yeah,
so we learned about that. We learned the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And in the future, when we bomb the refugee camps, we're going to put things in place to make it less likely that we're going to kill quite that many refugees.
He
Yeah.
really was like,
Or-
hey, who hasn't, guys? Who hasn't?
It's this idea of like, hey, real adults understand that sometimes you got to kill people. And it's just like, and as like you were saying, Daniel, it's like this, like, hey, and we learned from it. And, we killed some refugees when we bombed the refugee camp, and we investigated it, and we learned some important lessons. The most important lesson we learned is we can do this with impunity, and literally no one can do anything about it. So what we've learned is that when you say I'm sorry, that's considered atonement, because that's the new definition for atoning.
What we've learned is that press conferences make things go away.
Yes, exactly. And saying I'm sorry, with a front-facing fucking camera. And the annoying thing about it is, like, John Kirby is doing that press conference talking about Rafah in this way where, as if this hasn't been the exact same thing for every single war crime that we have seen carried out in the last 8 months. I mean, it's the same thing with when they, killed the people at the World Central Kitchen. It's the same thing, when it was the little girl who was fucking murdered from car to car, and, fucking like, just kind of this like this idea of like, well, Israel's going to do an investigation, and isn't that great? And we're supposed to continue to. Nothing has happened from all those other ones. Why would we think?
And
this would help?
tone policing the journalists now, because the journalists are getting more and more frustrated.
Sure. Yeah.
And there was a guy,
Even mainstream ones.
Yeah.
There was a guy recently who was like, how many more charred corpses does the president need to see?
Yeah, he was from CBS.
And it was like, well, I'm a little bit, offended by the framing of your question. Like, you guys are not behaving properly in class. Like, let's keep it. No need to hit below the belt, guys. Just these people are being burned alive.
Like, it's one thing to like, murder a boatload of children. It's another.
Let's
thing
agree to disagree, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's another thing to like be mean to me. That's fucked up. Like, these guys are such pussies too, because it comes from this place of like, authority, their authority being questioned by people who have an emotion. It's like this idea of like, well, you're not supposed to be emotionally attached to this. It doesn't matter how many people die. Your job is to ask me nicely what I'm going to do about it. And when I say literally nothing, you're supposed to go, okay, noted, and write it down. Like, the idea that you would, be frustrated is like, whoa, this is crazy. What are we, a communist country? Before we continue, it is very important, speaking of communist countries, we are not in one. We're in a capitalist one. And because of that,
God damn it.
we have to do commercials. And so we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be right back. So stick around, motherfuckers. Okay, we're back. Here we are, back again. I want to talk about something that went viral. Have you guys seen the All Eyes on Rafah image that went viral? For those of you who have not seen it, I'll put it up on the screen right here. And if you're listening, you can just Google it. All eyes on Rafa. Where is it at? Yeah, here, right here. So this is a like clearly AI generated.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Around the internet like crazy through through Instagram, I think mostly, and Twitter. This image was shared by 47 million people. And in fact, it's one of those things where the image got so popular that it kind of made both Zionists and anti-Zionists mad. Like, I think everyone has a critique of this in some fashion. Like, it made Zionists go fucking crazy. Zionists were just straight up pissed off about it. Like, I don't know if you guys seen all the like versions, the Zionist versions of this. Like,
I've seen the counter. I've seen the counter AI. Yeah, exactly. This one.
There's one
Which
where
looks,
the AI
which looks like the most horrible Pixar film ever.
Right.
I was like, what is this?
Pixar's October 7th. Where were your eyes on October 7th? And
Look
it's
at that child sitting there in perfect lotus position.
Yeah, I know.
Like
even their babies are doing yoga. Damn. Where were your eyes on October 7th? A Hamas guy in front of a baby who was like sitting in the lotus position, and
Pool of blood in the sand.
Yeah, and like people like the absolute scumbag Michael Rappaport were just going crazy about this image because it was shared so heavily. So he did this little video. I'm just going to play a second of it where you...
Rafa, right? All eyes on Rafa, right? All eyes, all information on Rafa. Where are the fucking hostages in Rafa? Where's the
All right. That's all you need to hear.
That's enough. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's just one of the worst guys in the world, man. You can't hear him without just thinking, oh, God, fucking A. It's like a fucking screwdriver in my brain. We're all eyes on Rafa. And the Washington Post did an article about this, but it was like the weirdest article because it was just about how the image was AI generated. It was like an investigative piece where they're like, this seems to have been made by AI, which is something that literally everyone knew. Here's the headline. An image calling for all eyes on Rafa is going viral, but it seems AI generated.
As if there was anyone who thought it was a real photo.
I know. And the weird thing is, in the article, they consulted an AI expert. In the article, they go, okay, it says, there's clearly no cleanly cut rows of tents or sloping snow mountaintops near Rafa's encampments. Tents sitting among fields and buildings, and the area is dotted with palm trees and the occasional sandy hill. Footage of the deadly Sunday night attack showed a very different Rafa. Simon noted that if the image were real, other images depicting the same scene would be available, given the size depicted of the camp and the international focus on... Why are we writing this?
You know what else wouldn't be in the photo if it was real? A bunch of text on the ground saying "All eyes on Rafa." Like, do you think that do you think people believe? Wow, the residents of Rafa took time out of their busy days being incinerated and beheaded to go out and form letters in this what looks like an Iowan cornfield. Like this Arms Across America.
Use your own satellite to take a photo of it.
It's just like, no, I love the idea that they're like, well, it's possible some people were just like, they're running for their lives from the north, but also content is content, bro. Like, we did this for the Post. Like, who the fuck? Anyways, I don't know why Washington Post did that, but
I want to see the corresponding article that's like, however, a baby did single-handedly hold off a Hamas fighter, as shown in this incredible award-winning photo.
Yes. No, that one was real. The Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, like how this AI-looking image is actually real, though. That baby was crazy.
Not all babies were beheaded on October 7th.
Yeah.
Here's the story of the one who survived.
Yeah, the Tiananmen Square baby. Just standing there like...
A beheaded Israeli fetus took the photo.
Yeah, that's right. But so, like, obviously, the popularity of this image is something that pissed off the Zionists and whatnot. But I noticed that it also, there were some, I think, like, some fair critiques of it from people who do care about this. Like, people are basically calling this, the sharing of this image and the rapidity of how far and wide it was spread as being like the new black square from 2020 Black Lives Matter George Floyd protests. And the people, are also saying that sharing this is like you're sharing a sanitized image. You're sharing something that is AI generated, which is fucking stupid. And you could be sharing actual photos of the mass atrocities that are, being carried out, of which there is no shortage. And like, I'm going to ask you guys how you feel about this in a second, but I'll say that like, on the one hand, I agree the kind of frustrating nature of social media is such that like something will become popular and, everyone will share something and that's their version of activism. On the other hand, I feel like this issue is something in which people very much have been avoiding for months and months. And there's like this idea that like, it's the same thing as a black square. I don't think so. Because like we said, earlier, I feel like there's no political party, to like appropriate this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Congress people are not kneeling in
no,
in
they're
like
not
keffiyeh themed fabrics.
Yes, exactly.
In the rotunda.
Yes. And we're not having in any meaningful sense a debate by our elected leaders as to whether or not a genocide is going on or whether or not Israel's an apartheid. It is just like it is lockstep. And so I think like we do this thing where we criticize the whole like liberal thing of raising awareness, which I get because it's cringy. Like there's a cringy nature to this idea of always constantly sharing stuff in order to raise awareness.
Do you remember the clickhole thing, the pledge?
Oh no, what was that?
This is from back like about 10 years ago when Clickhole was having its day. The sort of Onion offshoot.
Yes.
It was this inspiring video series called The Pledge. I've taken the pledge. Have you taken the pledge? It's like young millennials being like, let's take the pledge. Taking the pledge is a concrete step you can take to make a better world. And just on and on, like endless content about the pledge, but they never say what the pledge is, what you're pledging to.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh man, Clickhole.
I commit to continuing to be a liberal. Like, what's the promise?
Yeah.
I commit to continuing to raise my commitment level. And to be aware of my commitment and committed to awareness.
Yeah, and to scold you if you're not aware, being made aware, or raising aware.
That's right. And if you ask me what I'm talking about, don't ask me to do your emotional labor for you.
Please, don't ask me to educate you,
It's not my job to educate you.
It's not my job. Yeah. But I think, like,
look,
just real quick, I think the annoying thing about, like, the kind of raising awareness thing is like valid. People are annoying. Liberals are annoying. I get that. Thing is not everyone actually is aware. And to raise awareness on this is maybe as ham-fisted or as like kind of cringy as the whole thing was. It does have an effect. I think we need to like look at this and go like, I would love it if being for Palestinian human rights was as, politically like feasible or normalized as being like I believe that gay marriage should be legal. I believe that people should have the right to an abortion. Like it can be something that in which there are multiple sides of it, sure, but at least it's in the conversation. It's not just uniformly, wow, that's anti-Semitic. It's fucking crazy to me. And so I look at this and I go like, this is this is maybe a performative act, but I also am like, I'll take what I can get when it comes to this shit, especially if it gets fucking like normal, regular people to finally say the first fucking words out of their not even out of their mouth, on their social media feeds about this fucking genocide. So that's my feeling about it.
Yeah, I saw some celebrities who I think presumably had been silent on this shared that.
Yes.
I would just say about it, look, at a certain point, online activism, online anything cheapens everything.
Yes,
and
completely.
And there's something sickening about an AI generated image.
Yes.
The cleanness of AI, just the soullessness of it.
Yes.
That it could have been like there's a human being was not involved. You can basically tell a computer, hey, make me an image that will manipulate people's emotions into paying attention to something called RAFAH. It doesn't have to know what it is, any context, what the history is.
Yeah.
You could have made something called All Eyes on Kibbutz Be'eri, and it would have been the same image. Like to the computer, it's all neutral. And you can feel that in the aesthetics of it. You can feel the coldness of it, the emptiness, the meaninglessness of it fundamentally. Now, we attach the meaning because we know the context. And added to that context is what you're saying, Matt, is that there's been so much silence on it in the mainstream. So that's great. But yeah, look, on a certain level, there are moments when doing this podcast, I have this sort of empty feeling inside, if I'm honest. We're voices on people's phones making jokes about things, and our jokes make no difference. Now, I'm not trolling for or fishing for compliments or reassurance. I know the value.
But feel free.
Feel
free to tell us, no, we're good.
Because we do this for virtue. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like that at a certain
100%.
point, this method of distribution, this method of production, even though this is a very human created and distributed podcast, mediating anything through this technology cheapens things. And even the best activism that's happening online on social media, you stay with it long enough, you follow the best accounts, and you tune in day after day, and at a certain moment you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm consuming content. I'm not
100%.
really doing activism. And you can feel that gap, and you feel your powerlessness, and you feel the gap between your powerlessness and the ersatz feeling of power you get from people engaging with you and liking your comment or arguing with you or whatever. So I think in a way, the AI generated image is the perfect synecdoche, or the perfect, it's the perfect distillation of something that is at the heart of all of this for us, which is we're engaging in it remotely. Most of us are not there on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, we're not living in Palestine. We're not living in Israel. We're not dealing with the consequences on the ground. For those people are having a qualitatively different experience. And I think there's something disturbing about that. And it should be disturbing because that's just part and parcel of this moment. As far as the merits of that particular image of its own, it's chintzy aesthetically and whatever. It has upsides, it has downsides, but I think it's pointing to something deeper, a kind of nausea that we're all feeling.
Sure.
At just being, we're all trapped inside this big gladiator arena, this big fucking movie theater, Broadway musical that none of us ever want to watch, and we're throwing peanuts at the stage, and none of us can change a goddamn thing about what's happening. And what can I say?
Because,
it's disturbing.
As we were saying before, like because people are paying such a price for speaking out. The idea of people being able to kind of skate past it by sharing this kind of inoffensive generic image, because a lot of people I saw, I'm sure you guys also saw, people who hadn't said anything until now were able to post this.
Right.
And so, I mean, there's no way of knowing. Like, I'm sure for some people, hopefully it's the beginning of them saying more. But I think there's also like that resentment from a lot of people who have been saying stuff, that this is your way,
100%.
your ticket out. You say it once and then you go back saying nothing.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, like, and I think both of those things, there is that part of me that's like, wants to call someone a coward for doing, something as simple as sharing an inoffensive image with people who, where you're not saying anything that's necessarily going to get you in trouble or whatnot. The other side of me does see it and go like, the more that we can normalize people at least doing fucking something. Like I realize that I set my expectations low of people, and I should probably up them. And I think I have higher expectations of people who are, like in power, elected representatives. Those are the people I have high expectations of. I have less high expectations of just kind of general public, especially when there's fucking jobs on the line and they don't know what the fuck they're going to do. And I want to give an example of like, one way in which I think this shit can be useful in some way. Like Palestinian Children's Relief Fund was able to raise an additional $40,000 within, I think, an hour or maybe 2 hours after Ariana Grande shared a link on her Instagram story. And like, this is someone who, Ariana Grande had not been someone who'd been posting about this, been being like, here, donate here and donate there. This was almost like a moment in which she felt safe enough to share this kind of link. And it did raise $40,000 for Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. And, I see that as a net good,
Is she the one who someone died at her concert and was there was a terrorist attack at one of her concerts in London?
Yeah. And I don't know whether or not if she said anything else regarding this or whatnot, but as far as I know, she had been silent about it. And it's funny because you see like the immediate reaction, because like even such a small thing as sharing a link to donate to children got a reaction from a friend of the pod, Emily Schrader, the Hasbara settler from Los Angeles, who now lives in Israel and is indigenous now. She made a little video where she was yelling at Ariana Grande and Dua Lipa, and I'll play a little bit of that right now.
Of celebrities sharing posts against the war in Gaza called All Eyes on Rafah. Sounds nice, right? Humanitarian. But here's the reality. Every single celebrity engaging in this campaign who was silent on October 7th and has said nothing about the fact that we still have more than 100 hostages being held by Hamas is a racist.
Bet you didn't know she was going to call him a racist. I just love that is a racist. Like, is a what? Can go on, go on, white lady.
I don't care when it's a conflict involving Jews. Where was your outrage over China shipping off Muslims to concentration camps? Where were the protests when the Islamic Republic of Iran executed over 800 people?
It's funny. You could have just said Iran, but I think you wanted to make sure people knew he's Islamic. I think you could have said Iran, though.
In 2023 alone, where was the social media campaign against the execution of LGBTQ in Iran, Yemen, and other Middle Eastern nations? Where is the global demand for aid to Sudan, where there's a famine and mass killings? If you're silent on these issues,
I mean that's true. Where is the demand for aid to Sudan? I mean,
sure. I mean, what
it's got nothing to do with Jews. It got nothing to do with the fact. I mean, this is the thing. They always want to make this about Israel being a Jewish country. No, not at all.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's like this is the same fucking whataboutism that they always fucking do every single time someone actually decides to, fucking nut up and say something about dead children.
That we are killing.
Tax dollars. Yes, with our tax dollars. And they're just like, well, what about all these other? You're just mad because the Jews are the one killing them. And it's like, that's a fucking weird excuse, bro. Well, we can't also do kill children? Oh, okay, racist much? Like, are you a psychopath? You're like, who is this for? Anyways, you see that reaction, and you go, and I have to say that, like, part of me is like, it's important to, even if you're doing it, as a fucking celebrity like Ariana Grande, and you're doing it like almost, thoughtlessly, like, okay, I'm just gonna put this link in one of my stories, like, and it's just gonna be my dipping my toe in trying to help. As much as, like, we can call it like, this is online fucking whatever activism. I look at that and I go, like, she raised fucking $40,000 from a simple act, and even if she had raised none, and one of my favorite Twitter posters, you guys know Hurt Copain?
Yeah.
Like, this fucking dude is one of my absolute favorites.
Hilarious.
He's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
And he goes by @Saeed DiCaprio. And he writes, by the way, this goes deeper than just money. Celebrities being vocal protect people from being kicked out of their work or schools because it makes it less, quote, taboo to hold the same position, which in parenthetical, which makes it easier to call for policy changes. And then he goes on to say, and I know this is common knowledge for most, but I just see people comparing what X and Y celebrities would raise if they posted about it. And it's like, even if they raise $0, it's important to just do it regardless. And then he points to an example. He goes, for example, this tweet in which he wrote, "Long live Palestine" in October 2015, almost got me suspended from school at the time. Thanks to you wonderful people. However, I can say that and be okay now. Still criticizing the occupiers and being against funding them with missiles is still stigmatized. So we have some ways to go. And I think that's like an important point. It's like, I'm sorry, but making this a normal thing, making it not a stigmatized, scary fucking, like, it should be weird that people are losing their jobs. People should be fucking furious that they're trying to pass laws making it illegal to boycott Israeli products. Like, people, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, people forget how taboo the word Palestine has been.
Yeah.
What it automatically triggered.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, how much is a pop star going to say, right?
Right.
Like, you know, if you're here waiting for, you know, Taylor Swift to, you know, denounce the Zionist usurper, like, it's not going to happen, right? But, you know,
her next album is just called Crush the Zionist Entity.
You're like, which boyfriend is she talking about? So, but you know, like you said, it's creating a new baseline. Mm-hmm. For what can and cannot be said, and it's pathetic. It's terrible.
It is pathetic.
That you know, someone posting a link with the word Palestine in it that's about saving dying children is something new for us. But it is.
Yeah, and you know, I think that like we're fighting against a current here. You know, and I don't mean it like in like, I'm not like saying I'm fighting against the current, but I mean like just rhetorically, you know, talking about this shit can get you in trouble. I mean, that is like period. And it's actually one of the reasons why I kind of like allow some people a little bit of grace. I feel a little weird expecting, especially like non-Jewish people in my life, to say something publicly about it, because I understand that it's a scarier thing. Now, some people disagree with me. They say it's way scarier if you're Jewish and doing it. Not in my case, but I think in a lot of other people's cases in which they could lose their whole families. You know, it's like a fucking, you know, nationalism is a cult and Zionism is no different. So it is scary for those people as well. But, you know, in general, people are, you know, they're afraid to talk about it. And
well, Aamer, you said that one of the things that drew you to speak about it was just feeling like, okay, well, where's the comedy community? What are they going to say? So you came in, you said what you said.
Yeah,
what's the response been? What is it?
I have expectations of people. Yeah. I have expectations of people based on what they've said and done before.
Right.
You know, these
and
are
have you
people
heard from
who
them
have
since?
put themselves out there and, you know, built themselves up as, you know, X, Y, and Z. So, you know, I have, I guess, different expectations for different people.
Yeah.
And has anything, like, since you've put yourself out there, have you heard from any of these people? Have they noticed your return, or you know?
You know, I've got some kind of like quiet follows on you know, on Instagram, or like a couple of people reaching out, or but you know, like there was this comedian in New York, a Libyan comedian, Mohamed El Sheikhi, who, you know, you guys should have on.
Yeah.
He did a story recently where he's like, if you have a huge following as a comedian, why are you quietly reaching out to me behind the scenes, being like, "Great work, buddy. You know, it's so great that you're speaking up." He's like, "Well, why the fuck aren't you? Like, what's the point of this? You know?"
Glad to see you doing your thing, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Really being true to yourself, man.
Keep grinding, man. You know?
Keep grinding, man.
Love
your
brand. That grind set mindset. You rise and grind every morning. You talk about Palestine or Pakistan or whatever. And
your hustle different from my hustle, but it's good to see you hustling.
Yeah. It's like, hey, how about you know, you could do something. No, that's all you, dog. That's all you. Mad respect.
I don't want to step on your
toes. I'm not a smart person.
I don't steal bits, man. I don't steal bits.
That's your bit. I'm gonna do something about, like, you know, the Uyghurs, maybe. I don't know. I'm thinking.
You
about
got to it first, man.
thinking about keeping it about Frosted Flakes and stuff. Maybe like Pop-Tarts. That's kind of more my
Pop-Tarts,
thing.
yeah. Pop-Tarts,
And again, like, I mean, comedy is a very, very difficult industry. I know. I quit. So for younger comics, newer comics, I get it. Like, I don't expect them to launch into like a brand new 1 hour show about
100%.
Palestine.
Yeah.
But there are people who have a lot of insulation. There are people who have huge fan bases, and it would not be that easy to just cut them off from their livelihood. In fact, it would be impossible. Like, there are some people who have an independent fan base now that would respond well to them saying it, and would continue to support them. So, again, I hold people to different standards, and especially based on what they've done in the past, or what they've been willing to say, or how they've presented themselves in the past.
Yeah. Well, speaking of comedians, we're going to end on something very important. The greatest living comedian in the world recently went to Israel and came back.
He came back speechless.
I'm talking about, of course, my main man, Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
You might know him from such films as Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story, or B-Movie, which is a movie about a bee. You might also know him as the Ben Affleck to Larry David's Matt Damon from the show Seinfeld. Actually, I want to take that back because at this point, I think I love Ben Affleck equally to Matt Damon. They're both great. But Jerry Seinfeld, I don't know if you guys saw him. He went on Barry Weiss's show.
Barry Weiss, that champion of ruthless
human rights
crusading.
and free speech.
Well, just free speech,
The truth teller.
moral
The truth
courage.
teller.
And she, years ago, I remember, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, she did an event at the 92nd Street Y. I think like Jake Tapper or one of these ghouls, liberal ghouls, interviewed her. And she talked about how anti-Zionist Jews are like Jews back in the Hellenic period, or I forget what era or whatever, who would get voluntarily uncircumcised.
Oh, I'm sorry, say that again?
Excuse me?
Uncircumcised. They would have skin grafted on or something like that to rejoin to assimilate, basically. She's calling us, dick traders.
First of all,
Dick trader.
First of all, I'm not a dick trader. How dare you, Barry Weiss? Second of all, I didn't
Charlie
know
Chaplin did make my favorite film, The Great Dick Trader.
I loved it. It's so good. But also, Sacha Baron Cohen made a much more Islamophobic one called just The Dick Trader.
That's right.
First of all, I didn't know you could grow back your foreskin. But also, Barry Weiss is, famous for being a free speech warrior and a piece of shit. You may know her as someone who was indirectly or directly responsible for the death of the Palestinian poet. Was it Rafat?
Rafat
Al-Hariri,
yeah.
yeah. And years before that, she made her name trying to get a Palestinian Columbia professor fired. Joseph Mossad,
that's kind of her whole origin story is all Zionism based. So it makes
her great quote was it was something like, children die, but this is the unfortunate burden of Israel's independence, or something like, just there was a recent
something dope and normal and good.
Yeah, something really cool, something you want to print on a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're an IDF sniper.
Yeah, it's something like the 14 words, similar to that, but Judaized. So I just wanted to play a little clip of. This is so stupid. I want to play a little clip of Jerry Seinfeld on that show. Here we go.
Yes.
Since the war started. How was that trip?
The most powerful experience of my life.
Really?
I'm sure, yeah.
Why?
You just...
Are you thinking of someone in particular?
So there's I recorded this right before the show, okay? Yeah, so you know,
her show is called Honestly.
yeah, it sure is. And honestly, it's dog shit.
Well, as I posted, he's a double dipshit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You double dip the shit. Yeah, it's like putting your whole mouth on Netanyahu's asshole.
Twice.
Anyways, that interview, don't watch it. It sucks. He mostly is just talking about how he wishes. He's basically just doing Tony Soprano the whole time, where he's like, "What happened to Gary Cooper? Strong silent type."
Yeah.
He's, you know, listen. What are your thoughts? Final thoughts, Aamer, on Jerry Seinfeld as a comedian? The greatest comedian of all time? Yes or no? Yes or yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I just, he represents comedians.
Yeah, that's right. He's the living representation of all comedians.
Just narcissists obsessed with their own genius.
Yeah.
And deeply misanthropic too. Like there's a deep hatred of people at the heart of Jerry Seinfeld's comedy. I've always felt this. Back in the days of what made Seinfeld a really enjoyable show was like the human foibles of George and Elaine and, you know, Kramer's wackiness, whatever. But at the heart of the more and more that show went on, I just had this sense that there was this seething loathing of people, and he really embodies it.
But wrapped in a kind of wackiness.
Yeah,
wackiness and
kind
squeamishness.
Like a misdirection. Yeah,
and squeamishness. Like, ooh, isn't it gross when people are weird? Isn't it weird when people are gross? Oh, now let's I blame that show Seinfeld for kind of like creating this inventory of different kinds of gross, unpleasant people that we're now allowed to have names for and make jokes about and be like, ooh, I don't feel comfortable with him. I don't feel comfortable with her. And it felt like a meanification of culture at that point in the 90s when everything was getting meaner and more shallow. That was my feeling about it.
I mean, I agree with you to a sense. I think the difference is that I've always agreed with the deep hatred of humanity within Jerry Seinfeld. The difference was that I thought it was funny because it was essentially harmless, because it was just
or
kind
self-deprecating.
Of like,
but it was making fun of the person who hates people.
But even just in being someone who's like a clear snob, I always thought it like kind of funny because he just kind of wore it on his sleeve. It never came with genocide. It was like, oh, I thought you were just kind of an asshole. And it's like, you know, I allow for there to be assholery if someone is doing it in sort of a harmless, toothless way. I mean, it's not. He was never necessarily doing anything racist or sexist, maybe a little bit with the man hand stuff. But like in general, it was just kind of like the minutia of the world pisses him off and he hates it. And like all the little bits that make us human, he hates. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of a funny type of monster.
That's the Larry David kind of in the show. The guy who reacts too much to something that's minute.
Yes.
But the difference is that Larry David actually is self-deprecating because he is the butt of the joke and he faces consequences for his assholery and he never learns. And so that's the thing. Jerry Seinfeld never faces any consequences whatsoever in his own comedy. He's just this.
He doesn't hate himself.
He doesn't hate himself.
And that's the problem. And
exactly.
I remember the one episode in which he does a bit about like, you know, he can't be with a woman who is exactly like himself because he hates himself too much. And I remember it's the only time where I was like, that feels like a George storyline. Jerry doesn't hate himself. Jerry thinks he's the fucking smartest person in the world. Yeah.
And I wish he had the courage to hate himself.
If he only had the courage to realize.
The way we all have the courage to hate him.
That's right. it's really insane because
Talk about emotional labor. He refuses to hate himself, so he has to make the entire world hate
we have
him.
to do it for him. What an asshole.
Lazy.
Lazy piece.
Outsourcing that emotional labor.
Seriously.
That's what Zionism's about.
But yeah, I mean, I wish comedians would have the guts to say something. They don't, of course.
No.
None of them do.
No, they don't. In fact, they'll cozy up to power anytime it's convenient. Listen, that's just the way of the world. And that's, I think, the end of the podcast. I think we have had enough. Aamer, I love you, dog.
Likewise, man. I was like, I'm so happy that I was able to be on. I have one last Seinfeld tidbit. You can cut it out, maybe.
Oh,
But,
no, please.
But philosopher Andrew Schultz weighed in, and he was talking about people walking out of Seinfeld's commencement speech. Was it at Duke?
Or some Ivy League
Somewhere.
bullshit. Yeah.
And Schultz is like, yeah, there's like all these kids walking out because there's a Jew on stage. I was like, really, bro?
I know.
Wow. Once again, cutting to the heart of the issue.
Yeah. Like shit like that pisses me off to no end because it is so narcissistic and self-serving. And I'm like, listen, I don't know Andrew Schultz enough to know whether or not he's like a real life dumbass or plays one on TV. But I, in general, like to give people enough credit to know when they're being manipulative, lying, narcissistic pieces of shit. And that's a manipulative, lying, narcissistic thing to fucking state when it is so fucking clear why people are doing this,
If you want to hear an old story about Jerry Seinfeld being an asshole back then, Danny Hawk is a great, it's kind of a legend of New York City monologuing, one-man shows kind of thing. He, does various voices and characters. I remember seeing him 25 years ago doing these incredible one-man shows of different New York characters from across the boroughs, different backgrounds. He was he's a white Jewish guy, strong in the hip hop community, things like that. Kind of like who Michael Rappaport would be if he had a soul and any intelligence, but like he's got that look and that sound, but
totally.
he's a really good dude, and I've met him. Anyway, he was cast as Ramon the pool guy on Seinfeld. And he got fired because he basically refused to play up the Spanish accent, and they kept having to cut, and Jerry would come over to him and be like, look, you were really funny in the audition, but can we have you do it more Hispanic, basically?
Yeah.
And in his monologue work, Danny creates full-blooded characters from the boroughs, from Queens, Bronx, including Puerto Ricans. So he can do a Cuban accent, for instance. But in the context of the show on Seinfeld, there's no character here. The joke is the guy's a crazy Cuban pool guy, and he refused to do it, and he got fired. Anyway, I just sent you guys a link to an old article about that. But yeah, that was the thing. Like Seinfeld didn't. He resented a comedian trying to bring more craft and character and humanity to his performance.
Right.
He's like, no, can you just make it dumber and meaner, please? You're on Seinfeld right now.
Yeah. And, it's like one of the reasons why, I trust no clean comic, I say.
Right.
If you're a clean comic, you're probably a psychopath. And if you're
Cosby and Seinfeld, it's
that's
true.
right. And if you're a dirty comic or a mean comic like Jeselnik, truth is you're probably a really fucking nice guy in real life. And Jeselnik is a nice dude. I don't know his stance on anything Palestine-wise, but I will say that every story I hear about Anthony Jeselnik in real life in my own limited interaction, I've been like, he seems nice. Thank you so much for coming on the show again, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your Istanbul stay. I know it's late there. My bad.
Thanks for having me, man. No, it's my pleasure.
Hell yeah. Where can people find you? What plugs you got? Let's plug them.
I mean, I'm going back to not doing stand-up. So.
Hell yeah. Living the dream.
I literally just reappeared, and I'm going back to my civilian life. But I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I made a TikTok, but I have a couple more clips from those shows, and then I'm
This is Aamer's plug for leaving me the fuck alone.
Yeah, I love this. God bless you, sir. It's like,
You can return to see my old work anytime.
yeah, you can check it out. You can rewatch it 1,000 times. Yeah, shout out to you for for putting it out there and just putting up both middle fingers and saying fuck you.
And for visiting us before you peace out of this motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always happy to come back, man. I'm really, really, really glad you guys had me on.
Yeah, well, please come back. We'll definitely have you back. Thanks for coming on, and everyone follow him on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, probably other shit too. And subscribe to Bad Hasbara on Patreon, patreon.com/Bad Hasbara. You can support this podcast and support me and Daniel and Adam too. I don't know, I'm singing this. I'm tired. I got to pick up my baby. Shit is wild. But all right, everyone. Thank you again so much for listening. And from the river to the sea, Jerry is not sponge-worthy. Yeah, thank you, producer Adam, for that one.
Good,
all right.
good last minute one there. Thanks,
yeah.
Adam.
Jumping jacks was us. Push-ups was us. Krav Maga us. All karate us.